Hey everyone! Welcome to Be the Change. My name is Lily Mott, and today I'm going to be talking about how change comes when you refuse to take no for an answer. I am excited to get started and share this episode with you today because this guest is doing some important work to educate and inspire the next generation of political leaders in the US. Rebecca Joseph is the founder and co executive director of Women in Politics, which is an organization dedicated to making politics a more tangible career path for young women through different initiatives. I really enjoyed this conversation with Rebecca and can't wait to share it. So, without further ado, let's get started with this episode featuring Rebecca Joseph.
First off, thank you, Lily, for having me on the podcast. My name is Rebecca Joseph. I'm 16 years old and I'm a high school junior from the Bay Area. I'm the founder and co-executive of Women in Politics, which is an organization I started in May of 2020 that blew up over a TikTok video. And essentially what the organization is that we're just dedicated to making politics a more tangible career path for young girls specifically. And right now we're currently working on releasing a children's book, which is very exciting.
Thank you for taking the time to talk with me, Rebecca, and I would love to know more about your background. What were some of the experiences that you had that led you to really get started with political advocacy? Tell me some about what led to the beginning of Women in Politics.
So, growing up, I was never really interested in law, much less politics. I never saw a woman like me getting involved, so I never really considered it as a tangible career path that I could really go into until my freshman year of high school, where I joined my school speech and debate team. And that really propelled me into the field of politics, specifically through debate, because obviously we're debating more political things. But even with speech, it gave me, I compete in original oratory, which is just 10 minutes of your original work. It gave me a space to really just talk about what I was passionate about. No interruptions, no anything. It was just me talking and people listening. And that was very rewarding. Um, and that pushed me again into the field of politics. But then the pandemic hit, I believe, like halfway through my freshman year in March. And that really put me back because tournaments weren't in person anymore. The tournament season was ending. And as the political scene got more tense, I was just looking for ways to get involved. And I never saw like a community of women who wanted to, a community of women who wanted to pursue this field, because debate and speech are very, male dominated. I'm sure for many listeners who've done any sort of political activity in high school and beyond, obviously it's very similar to like the real world of politics. So that's really what I longed for. And I wanted to just start a club because I thought school would be back in person after the 2 weeks we were gone. But obviously that didn't happen. And I posted a TikTok, I think within a day of me like thinking about this idea, and that went viral. And from there we just amassed, I think, over 100 applicants. And we accepted, I think, almost every single one. But that really allowed our organization to grow and flourish to where it is now.
That's so great. And I didn't realize that it all began with TikTok. That's such an interesting part of the story. So I'd also love for you to tell me more about that process to create and then develop Women in Politics after the initial launch following the TikTok. Tell me about that process to grow the organization because it seems like it's really organic based on how much interest there is in this topic.
It's a lot of trial and error. If you look back at like May 2020, if you scroll down to like the back end of our Instagram or go down, I mean, I think our TikTok is a little bit more curated, but really our Instagram, our mission statement has changed. What we do is change, what we've put out has changed, and it's really grown with what we want to have done with this organization, which has been amazing because I've been able to learn from multiple people across the states and across the world really about what they want to see in women in politics. But originally when I started, it was like we had a blog portion, we still have our magazine, we had a YouTube channel, and we had a few other things going on as well. But I put up a website. It was a very rushed website on Wix, but it was a website nonetheless. And I put up the Instagram. I made a Twitter. I don't think I made a TikTok, but I made a Twitter and an Instagram. And then from there I did the interview stuff, and I picked out team leaders and everything. But one of our writing leaders, Catherine Bronov-Shu, who's actually my co-executive now, she actually sat on a call with me one Friday evening, like the first week Women in Politics really began, and was like, this is a very messy schedule, Rebecca. We need to fix this. And she sat down and she reworked everything. And that honestly really taught me how to like delegate to people and let other people be a part of this mission, because I didn't realize it at the time, but as soon as that video became viral, it wasn't really my mission, my idea anymore. It was all of ours. And from there, I think we reorganized like the magazine schedule. We came up with new ideas to reach out to people, new events that we did, which was amazing. We're starting to do speech and debate stuff, reaching out to kids on a more local level. And then with the children's book, that was also one of our Catherine's idea, actually, that a few of our writers have started to write, and we're in the process of designing right now. But it's really, like, I like the word you said, organic. There hasn't been a structure to it, but it's all of us just trying to find our way. And at the time that we started, all of our founding members, most of us were in high school still. So now it's really grown with us, because a lot of them are either in the middle of college or out of college right now, and now we're like letting more freshmen and sophomores come in. So it's really nice to see it grow, and with people as they grow up and as younger girls are joining us as well.
I would also love to ask you a little bit about the book. Tell me about how you came up with that idea and what the process looked like to create it, because I think it's another unique part of the work that you're doing with Women in Politics.
Yeah, this was actually last year, December 24th. So Christmas Eve, Catherine and I were FaceTiming. I'm honestly not sure why. We've been trying to figure out why we were calling. Like, it was a serious call where she was cooking dinner by herself. We both had family over. It was such an odd day, but regardless, we were calling and we were talking about how we really wanted to reach like the younger generation, because obviously we have our like social media platform where we connect with most people. But looking at Instagram analytics and just like overall, like we were only reaching people who had access to Instagram or TikTok, which weren't like younger girls. So we were talking about how we could reach them, and we were talking about books, because I'm sure you're familiar with the Who Was series, where they talk about like American presidents. They don't, like, those are all obviously white males besides Barack Obama. And that, like, obviously I would go through those books and read those for history class or whatever I was doing in elementary school. I just never saw any of myself in those books. And I just, again, never thought that I could do this. So we wanted to create a children's book just to show kids like, hey, this is something that you were allowed to do. This is, there's space for you in this field, in this scene. And the book follows two elementary school students who are going to the Capitol Hill on a field trip, and they get lost and they watch a bill being passed about seatbelts on school buses, and they play a little bit of a role in it. And our goal with the book is to have it be taught in a one school, one book track, which basically my elementary school did this. We did this with fictional books though, but what essentially would do is everyone in that elementary school, they would read the book at the same time, and there would be purpose questions. And then according to each grade's curriculum, there would be different things assigned. So fourth and fifth graders, I believe that I think fourth graders are doing state history and fifth graders are doing US history along with essay writing. So there would be like prompts attached to that to help teachers implement this into their curriculum. And then for second and third graders, it's mostly about like building sentences and sentence structure. So they would look into how our sentences are played with like verbs and adjectives and just how they're joined together, which is interesting. But a cool part about this book process is that I've been meeting with a lot of elementary teachers, and I've learned a lot about how, especially like the younger grades, how much they look into what they're giving students to learn. And it's very interesting, and it's very cool to see them do it now and looking back at my own education. But it's really been a great experience.
I love that idea, and it's great that you've been able to learn so much through the process as well. So I would love to know some of your thoughts surrounding the future of the gap between male and female representation in politics. What are you hoping to see in the future regarding this issue?
I hope the future is female, but I think what I hope the future will bring is really that women feel more accepted into this field. There is a statistic, I'm blanking on where it's from, but a man doesn't have to be asked for office one time; he'll just run out of his own, thoughts or whatever. While a woman has to be asked 9 times to run, and I think just that disbelief that I there is no space for me runs so high, and I hope that with what Women in Politics does, especially with the younger generation, that if we can instill it younger that they do have a space and that they do have a voice, that they'll feel that they can actually run. Because at the local and even state level, disregarding presidential races, women are just as likely to win as men. It's just the act of believing that they can run that's stopping us.
Thank you for sharing and explaining all of that, especially that statistic, because that's so interesting. And I think you're right that it really is what you're trying to target with women in politics. So I'd also love to know, is there any really great advice that you've received or maybe words of wisdom that you really try to live by? Does anything like that come to mind for you?
Ooh, that's a hard one. There's so many. I think there's so many for different chapters of your life. Um, I think right now what I'm working on is like, don't just, this is very generic, but just don't give up and whatever, and just do your best, and whatever happens will happen, but don't take no for an answer at the same time. So, in speech and debate, I faced instances where judges will give harsher comments to me, especially I used to debate with a male partner, and it was interesting to read our ballots and our comments in comparison, my comments and my um, critiques in comparison to his. So even though I get, somewhat of a negative reaction to what I'm doing, just don't give up, but also don't get hung over all this like negative news. So I think that's currently what I'm working on right now.
That's great advice, and I think so much of that you can't control, so it just makes more sense to move past it, which is exactly what you're doing. So I have one last question for you. Lots of young people, particularly college students, want to make a difference and they want to make change, but they may not know how or maybe where to get started. Do you have any advice for those people who may be listening?
My first thing is look locally. I think that's sometimes overlooked. I know a lot of cities have local youth commissions, one where I'm part of, and different, which is centered for youth. But they also have local task forces. I know a lot of cities, especially in California right now, are doing diversity, equity, and inclusivity task forces where youth usually do participate in that. And it's a very rewarding way to get involved with your local government and see change that you really want to see be enacted within your town. Um, as for other things, really honestly reach out to your local government, even if there isn't, a youth commission or any other task forces. Ask why not, because it's a good way to get a conversation starting, and I'm sure there's someone else somewhere in the government who wants to get that started. If not, I think looking into your school and seeing what's happening there. There are a lot of national and youth-led organizations that have started to come up over COVID, which has been very exciting. So always look into that. But there are resources for people. Just you need to know where to look and just keep on asking, and I'm sure you'll find something. And Women in Politics is always open, regardless of who you are, how old you are, where you're located. We're always looking for people to join us.
I really enjoy talking with Rebecca because I think she's doing really important work to educate people, particularly young women, about America's political system. Rebecca was completely right in saying that it can be so difficult for girls to see themselves working in politics because there just isn't enough encouragement for them to do so. I want to highlight Rebecca's advice that she shared because I think it goes along well with the purpose of women in politics. She talked about refusing to take no for an answer, and I think there are more and more politicians who are women who are doing just that. They recognize a need for their service, and they're trailblazing a way for generations of young women to follow their path to politics as well. Women in Politics is showing young women that they can push past barriers, and there is room for them in politics, despite the people who may tell them no or who may close the door. And that is why it is so important to remember Rebecca's advice that change comes when you refuse to take no for an answer. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, and you can connect with Rebecca on Instagram at Rebecca with a double R _ Joseph with a double J, and you can check out Women in Politics at Women in Politics _ as well. If you want to talk about anything I mentioned, please reach out to me by email at lily@bethechangepodcast.org or on Instagram at bethechangepodcast. Tune in for my next episode, but until then, be the change you wish to see in the world. Bye, guys.